You've probably heard it a million times. Australians are paying way more for electricity than they used to. We had the cheapest energy in the world, and we've completely squandered it. And it's all because of this big push to renewable energy. These ideas feel true, don't they? They get repeated so often that they become accepted facts. But what if I told you that the real story is a lot more complicated, and frankly, a lot more interesting? Stick with me because what you're about to change. How about your power bill? So, first things first. Are our electricity prices really that high compared to the rest of the world? The short answer is no. We're actually pretty average, right in the middle of the pack. According to the Australian Energy Council, our average household electricity price was about 39 cents per kilowatt hour. The average for developed countries in the OECD? About 38 cents. That puts us at 15th most expensive out of 38 countries. But wait, that's not the full story. A simple price-for-price comparison doesn't really tell you much about affordability. An Aussie household paying 39 cents is very different from a family in Spain or Colombia paying the same amount, because our incomes and cost of living are different. When you adjust for that, for what's called purchasing power, the picture changes dramatically. Australia drops from 15th, most expensive, all the way down to 24th. Suddenly, we're well below the OECD average. So, when it comes to how affordable our electricity is in a global context, we're actually doing pretty well. It might not feel like it when the bill arrives, but the data tells a different story. Okay, so what about this idea that we've squandered our cheap energy advantage? Has our ranking changed over time? Let's rewind about a decade. Back in 2014, even after adjusting for cost of living, our residential power prices were also just below the OECD average, ranking us 21st out of 32 nations. So, our position today is pretty comparable to where we were 10 years ago. Yes, our prices have gone up a lot, but guess what? So have prices in most other developed countries. We're all in a similar boat. And if we look at wholesale prices, that is the cost of generating the power before it gets to your house, data from the International Energy Agency shows we've consistently been in the middle of the pack among large countries since 2018. This is a good time to break down what actually goes into your bill. The wholesale price, the raw cost of the electricity, only makes up about a third to less than half of what you pay. The biggest chunk, often close to 50%, is network costs. That's for all the poles, wires, and transmission towers that get the power from the station to your home. Then you have retail costs and environmental scheme costs making up the rest. So, blaming high bills on just one thing is a huge oversimplification. Now, let's talk about what we've all been feeling in our wallets lately. How much have our bills actually increased? We all know they've been rising, but by how much? The government sets a maximum price that retailers can charge, called the Default Market Offer, or DMO, over the last 3 years. This price cap has gone up by about 30% in Queensland and New South Wales, and 25% in South Australia. But here's where it gets really weird. You might be shocked to hear that many Australians on the East Coast are actually paying lower power bills now than they were 3 years ago. How is that possible? 2 words: government rebates. The Australian Competition and Consumer Commission, the ACCC, tracks this. Their data shows that thanks to subsidies, the median household bill in NSW and South Australia was actually lower in late 2024 than it was 3 years earlier. Ain't in Queensland, Genebatan bills. Without those rebates, though, our bills would have shot up significantly by as much as 66% in parts of Queensland. So, prices have gone up, but government help has softened the blow. Nationally, the Stats Bureau says electricity costs have risen 19% in 3 years. But if you strip out the subsidies, that figure jumps to nearly 35%. This brings us to the million-dollar question: why have prices gone up so much? If you listen to the headlines, you'll hear one culprit over and over: renewable energy. But is that true? According to energy experts, the answer is a firm no. Joanaboye Elinshul for Fallacis says the main drivers are wholesale prices and network costs. And what's been driving up wholesale prices? It's not solar and wind. For the last decade, the two biggest culprits have been the rising cost of coal and, even more importantly, the price of gas. Research from Griffith University found an almost perfect link between gas prices and electricity prices on the East Coast. Here's why. During the day, when the sun is shining, we have heaps of cheap solar power flooding the grid. Wholesale prices can even drop to near zero. But in the evening, when we all get home and turn everything on, solar power fades. The grid then has to turn to the most expensive source of power to meet that peak demand, and that source is gas. Gas-fired power plants effectively set the price for everyone during those crucial evening hours. On top of that, unexpected outages at our aging coal-fired power plants have also put pressure on the system, forcing us to rely even more on expensive gas to fill the gaps. The key to cheaper energy, experts say, is to reduce this reliance on gas. So, what's the solution? It's actually more renewables, not less. More wind and solar, backed up by storage like batteries, means we rely less on expensive fossil fuels, especially during those peak evening times. Of course, building out this new green grid isn't cheap. We need new transmission lines, massive batteries, and other infrastructure. As Tony Wood from the Grattan Institute points out, we've underestimated how much it costs to get cheap, renewable power from where it is made to where it is needed, and to make sure it's available 24/7. This new infrastructure cost is being added to our bills. So right now, the low cost of generating renewable power is being offset by the high cost of building the system to support it. That's why many of us are looking at our bills and asking, when will cheap renewables actually mean cheap power? And the simple answer is, not yet. We're in the middle of a massive, expensive transition. But while the grid-scale transition will take time, there are things you can do right now to take control of your own bills. The single biggest way for a household to cut energy costs is to go electric. Investing in rooftop solar, a home battery, and efficient electric appliances for cooking and heating can slash your energy bills by an incredible 80 to 90%. You essentially create your own personal, low-cost power station on your roof. So, let's recap. Are our electricity prices the highest in the world? No. Have we lost our competitive edge? Not really. Is renewable energy the villain behind rising bills? Absolutely not. In fact, fossil fuel prices, especially gas, are the main driver. The long-term solution is more renewables, but the transition to get there is expensive and is adding to our bills in the short term. It's a complex picture, and it's easy to get lost in the noise. But understanding the real drivers is the first step towards making smarter energy choices, both for our country and for our own homes. The future of energy is cheaper and cleaner, but the path to get there is a work in progress. Thanks for watching. If you found this breakdown helpful, make sure to like this video and subscribe for more deep dives into the topics that matter. See you next time.